Salut chers téléspectateurs.
Happy to see you again for another edition of Football Planet on Africanews. Coming up, the headlines. End of the season on mainland with the list getting longer. The Gambia and Rwanda quits after more than 2 months. Meanwhile, Burundi resumes and Tanzania is expected to follow suit. COVID-19 and the fear of a financial crisis. The African transfer market is under threat. The stoppage of competitions is a hard blow for clubs, footballers and players' representatives. A players' agent, Adama Ndiaye, is our guest. On concerns over the 2022 World Cup, will the Qatar event be as attractive as hoped? Qatari authorities are trying to reassure the world. They promised an affordable World Cup despite the high cost of living in the Emirate. Details shortly. Welcome to the program. Things are getting clearer for the various championships on the continent. Between the announcement of the restart and the decision to stop, the week has been intense. Gambia and Rwanda have been added to the list of countries that have decided to stop. But unlike the Gambian Federation, which did not award a championship title, the Rwandan Federation crowned the Rwandan Patriotic Army for the 18th time in its history. Meanwhile, the season has resumed in Burundi, while Tanzania is planning to restart in the coming days. The government has announced the resumption of sport activities from June the 1st. But you should know that all these events are taking place amid uncertainty. The prospect of a financial crisis increasingly exposes the world of African football to enormous threat. Will support from the federations be enough to avoid the worst? There's no certainty, particularly as the transfer market is likely to take a serious blow. Another concern that frightens the continent's club leaders. Here's Ruth Lago and Nyashake Mutizwa's report.
The coronavirus has brought football around the world to a halt, and with it, the business of players changing teams for astronomical sums. Clubs are still planning moves in the transfer market, but those selling may have to reckon with a significant drop in revenue. With seasons set to extend past June, questions remain on whether it will be possible for players' contracts to also be extended. Many footballers, including those on loan, will no longer legally be contracted to their clubs past June 30. FIFA and CAF could be facing a legal minefield for cases of prearranged transfers and contracts due to commence on July 1. There's also some uncertainty over what it could mean for transfer fees, which for many clubs are an essential cash injection each year. The situation for African players is complicated and differs wildly from their European counterparts. With leagues at a standstill, finances collapsing, and clubs on the brink of collapse, the future looks bleak, especially for sub-Saharan African football.
And a rapid end to this situation is a cause for concern, particularly since transfers are, as you heard, the main source of income for most clubs in sub-Saharan Africa in particular. To gauge the extent of the problem, let's speak to Adama Ndiaye, a player's agent. Thank you for granting us this interview, Mr. Ndiaye. First of all, what are the consequences of this crisis on the transfer markets at this particular moment?
It is true that this COVID-19 pandemic has practically slowed down the development of sport everywhere in the world, and particularly football, and this has led to a reduction of sport-related events in the world. If we are talking about world football, it is already happening with our European friends, and then outside Europe, Africa, and Latin America. So we don't have any transfers at the moment. The clubs call you and say, yeah, I need such a player. But now you know, with the pandemic, we can't pay like before. There's no more means like before. We borrowed some money from the French government to pay the clubs, so it's a bit complicated.
So can we say that there's been a negative impact on your work right now?
Oh yeah, that has a negative impact. We already have players in France who are already known, so that's not really a problem. But often we bring players for trials, and the clubs don't take players like that. They ask you for videos and CVs too. Sometimes they travel to Dakar because now we organize a lot of training camps in Dakar. But often they also ask the players to come so they can see them. They want to see them performing, to really see the qualities of the footballer. So we've been blocked since March. I have players who were supposed to go to Germany and others who were supposed to go to Turkey, but they are all here. We can't move forward. We can't work. If it's a player who is already in France, who needs a contract renewal or a signature that's already there, it doesn't matter. Or in Turkey or anywhere, it doesn't matter. It is done by email, by phone and stuff like that.
Does this not devalue the market value of African players?
Yes. Obligatory. Already the clubs are complaining, saying they don't have any money. They didn't get the TV rights. They didn't get the UEFA receipts. They didn't get the championship receipts as well as ticketing. You know, African players at the moment are the most seen players in the world, practically. But on the other hand, they are not favored in ratings. They cost less than other players, even though we have players who are better. Take, for instance, Mbappe. Everyone says he is good, he is very strong, it's true. But we have equivalents in the conditions that Mbappe is in. We have young people here, we put them in the same conditions and they explode. But on the other hand, if we take an African player who has the same qualities as Mbappe now, you bring him to France or elsewhere in Europe at 16 or 17, they won't buy him at the same price as Mbappe. And how much did Mbappe cost? Very, very expensive. Now with the crisis, it's going to make the market value of our footballers to fall even more.
Finally, are you worried about the future of African football, at least in the short term?
Very worried about African football. It's going to start again, but it's not now. It might start again in a year's time. Maybe it will start again next season, but it's not now. There is no championship. There is no money. There's nothing. You've seen the French state has handed out loans to clubs. In France, the president talked about the employees, about not transferring salaries and things like that. So even those who have small structures pay salaries anyway. We don't have any income, but we pay them anyway. Morally and ethically, we are not prepared not to pay someone who doesn't work because, you know, that person depends only on that. He has children, so it's not the same. The vision is not the same. The culture is not the same.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ndiaye. I hope we'll have the opportunity to talk about much better things in a few months. I'll see you soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sambo.
Adama Ndiaye, Senegalese player agent, currently stuck in Dakar because of the COVID-19 pandemic. A crisis that does not only worry Africa, all continents and all competitions are concerned, including the World Cup, the host country for the next edition in 2022, Qatar. However, is trying to reassure the world. The Emirate promises an event accessible to all. Bridget Ugwe and Amelia Nakitimbo have the details.
The 2020 FIFA World Cup in Qatar will be financially accessible to fans. This promise by the head of the organizing committee is based on an expectation that a recession following the coronavirus pandemic could prevent fans from making the trip.
Definitely one concern is the economic impact and how it affects the individual. We've always said from day one, this will be an affordable tournament. We want anybody who wants to come to the World Cup to be able to come.
Qatar is still hoping to have 6 of its 8 new stadia completed before the end of the year, despite the disruption caused by COVID-19. The World Cup is scheduled to be played in November and December 2020 instead of June and July. This gives a little more time for global transport to recover.
But I believe by 2022, I'm optimistic that we would have overcome this pandemic as a human race collectively. I'm optimistic that we will come out of this more resilient as a human race And it'll be an opportunity for all of us to celebrate. It'll be one of the early opportunities for all of us to celebrate together.
Several countries are expecting a historic economic setback due to the unprecedented lockdown measures enforced to fight the spread of COVID-19. A number of sporting events have also been postponed or cancelled, including the Euro 2020, postponed to 2021.
In any case, we can't wait to be at this world gathering of stars like Sadio Mane, Mohamed Salah, and the African Premier League colony. Leaders of the English League are hoping for a revival like that of the clubs. And as you can see in these pictures, it's a great joy, but also some changes in look. So if you had any doubts about the importance of headdresses, these pictures will no doubt change your mind. Meanwhile, Lionel Messi, the stars of Spanish football, and their supporters are rejoicing after the announcement of the return of La Liga. The long-distance battle for the title between Barcelona and Real Madrid will get underway again from June the 8th after a 3-month hiatus. The news was confirmed Saturday by head of the Spanish government, Pedro Sanchez. So Spain is going to imitate Germany while waiting for England. The Bundesliga played the second post-confinement match day this weekend, the 27th of the season. And with a week to go before their clashes, Borussia Dortmund and Bayern Munich are in action. Borussia Dortmund beat Wolfsburg 2-0 in thanks part to a goal from Moroccan defender Achraf Hakimi. The Bavarians meanwhile curled past Eintracht Frankfurt 5-2, promising a fiery duel on Saturday. That's it for the program, but the news continues on Africanews and Africanews.com. We'll see you next week for another edition of Football Planet. Goodbye.
Au revoir.